Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. We just wrapped up game number 2 between Mana and Bly. The scores is now tied up 1-1. Before we jump into game number 3, let's take a quick look at the last day or two you have to enroll in this awesome opportunity called the Dr. Pepper Ultimate Gaming House. Go to facebook.com/MLGpro. It'll bring you right to this website. You can click on the Dr. Pepper Ultimate Gaming House icon. It'll bring you right to this website, and you can see the contest ends February 15th. At around 11:53 a.m. Eastern. That's a pretty interesting number. Right to the minute there. And, of course, it's got a contest. It takes a few minutes to enroll. Just make a short video, no more than 5 minutes in length, explaining why you're the ultimate gamer and why you're the giant fan of Dr. Pepper and Major League Gaming. And if you win this prize, what they're going to do is they're going to set you up with thousands of dollars of awesome hardware. So any game you can imagine, you'll be able to play on the most intense settings, on the biggest screens. It's just, if you ever are in a situation where like you're slapping your computer monitor because it's not quite doing what you want to do, enroll in this contest and you have a very good shot of, or a decent shot of winning a lot of awesome hardware and never having to worry about that problem again. Now let's get into game number 3 between Mana and Bly. This game's going to be on Ohana. A couple things to talk about this game that are really important is first, the importance of streamlining a build order, making sure your build order just is flawless as far as maximizing the timing of when you get each element of it out. And then we're going to talk about how you can deal with Zerg Mutas as Protoss if you're stuck on low-tech units. Then, of course, we're going to talk about how to maximize the effectiveness of the Mutas harass on the Zerg side. So we're going to jump in this replay. And one thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at Mana's build order firstly, right? So, typically as Protoss, with pretty much every build that's not gateway aggression, right? That's not gateway aggression, if you're not a very fast third. So if you're teching, if it's Robo or Stargate, what you want to do is around, basically as soon as you have gas and your Psychor finishes, you want to throw up that tech building, right? Maybe queue up 1 sentry first, but if you still have gas left over, start that tech building because the sooner you get it, the faster it pays off. Now, there is an element where you want to make sure they can't scout it, so you're worried about Overlords poking around, you're worried about Zergians poking at your front, and there's going to be another Overlord somewhere around here, over here, right? So you want to kind of not let them scout it, but the end of the day is that even if they can scout it and strategically react well to it, it's much better to make a strategically imperfect build, like something that they might be ready for, but make it streamlined than it is to make a strategically sound build that's not streamlined, right? So it can be tough. You're like, I want to wait until I can scout to see when your third is. I want to wait till I can scout more stuff because, you know, like let's say back at the 7-minute mark as a Protoss player, you can't really scout very much of a Zerg, right? You get a Zealot on the map. You know, maybe your probe knows they took their natural. But in general, you don't know very much. So it's not easy to make a build order decision. It's very tough. But you still have got to make one and commit, because if you don't commit, you sit there building nothing for a while, you'll be stuck in a position Mana's in, where he finally decides to do his build. He decides, okay, I'm going to get a robotics, and then I'm going to build a whole bunch of gateways, right? And that's his build. But these gateways are being started at the 8-minute mark. This build is already about 2 minutes later. Yeah, a minute later. Some amount of time later that's very significant than it could be if he just went for it from the start. And so even though, yes, his opponent might not know exactly that this build's coming now, if you do a build that's the perfect build, but it's very slow, or in your idea it's the perfect build it's slower than it normally is, it won't really matter because your opponent will be so far ahead of you in everything they're doing that even if your build theoretically counters theirs, it actually doesn't anymore because it's not streamlined. So always go for that streamlined build because otherwise they'll be stuck in this position where you're like, okay, my Zealots will kill his third base, and this is a nice attack because all I did is I got a Robotech and I got a fast Warp Prism and a bunch of gateways. I should be able to hit before he has significant units. I know he took a late third, so that means he wasn't really going Roaches. Hydralists, Mutalists, Swarmos, those will just be starting to be produced by the time this hits. Wait a minute. Why are their Mutas killing my Warp Prism? Right? That's not good. They're killing my Warp Prism, and the reason why is because if you wait too long to come up with the build you want to do, even if in theory this build should hit before this Mutas come out, if you build that Robo in the gateways, you know, a minute to 2 minutes later than ideally you'd wanted to have built them, Of course, the builds that used to counter doesn't counter anymore just because it's not streamlined. So very important to streamline your builds. Much more important to have a streamlined build than to have like a counter build. Because builds really only start to actually counter once they've been streamlined. So if it's unstreamlined, it doesn't actually counter anything, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But now we're in this funny position where, you know, Mana's here, and he's like, okay, let's try to get some damage done. Mutas are going to kill my War Prism. I should be able to take down his third hatchery, but for all the Zealots he's losing into War Prism, taking down a third hatchery is like, you know, it's a consolation prize in a two-player game, right? That's not what you want, right? Consolation's not ideal in a zero-sum game. So he's in a situation right now where he's got low tech, right? He's just got a couple Stalkers here. He's got some Warp Gates. He's got a Robo. He's got a single Forge upgrade, right? But he's got no Twilight Council, no upgrades on the way. He doesn't have much going for him, right? Very low tech, and the Zerg player has got 12 Mutas on the field. 12 Mutas. So this is not a good situation for the Protoss player. Not at all. I mean, it is nice that now it's on equal economy, but it's still a very bad position. So if you're behind, basically, he's kind of behind in economy. I mean, he's equal right now, but the Zerg can take the third and then get ahead with the map control. If you're not ahead in economy, let's put it that way, and you don't have significant ground upgrades, you don't have Twilight Council tech, double Stargate play right here is the best reaction to Mutas. I love Mana's decision there. Trying to get a Blink, it's not going to work. By the time you finally get enough Blink Stalkers to deal with the Mutas, they got 4 bases. They're going to be overrunning you with you know, Zerglings or Roaches or Infestors or what have you. Going for double Stargate play allows you to counter the Mutas efficiently while allowing you to allocate your gateway production to deal with ground-based threats, right? So that's a little bit nicer of a situation. Now, the thing, though, that you might need is it's still going to take you some time to get these Phoenixes out, right? So I would still like maybe a cannon or two to help protect the Phoenixes as you're trying to build the number. And then, of course, the Photon Overcharge can defend this Nexus right here without much of a problem. So now coming into this, the next one we're going to talk about is how to execute the Mutas Harass and get the most optimal damage done out of them. So one cool technique I like to do if I'm using Mutas, and I've actually seen, this is what Lenok does too. Lenok's amazing. So let's say you have your Mutas like right around here, right? You can choose which mineral line to hit, but there's a cool little like triple jab motion you do, right? So let's say, or you know what, however you got there, let's say you either come up this way or you come up this way, however it is. But anyway you got it, your Mutas are right now in their natural expansion. And of course your Zerglings, we'll put Z for Zerglings, are kind of hanging out in front of the base, right? In fact, actually, let me make this clear. We're going to put an M for Mutas. So your Mutas are in their natural. Their units are respond to their natural, right? So the Mutas can go here to the main, right? And then their units have to respond to that. And what you do is you swing out this way, so it looks like you might come back in the main. And then they have to leave some units back in the main there to help deal with that. And then you just move out here, and you knock out their wall, and your Zerglings hit the front. And if your Zerglings hit the front right before it, they'll take all the damage. Mutas can come in there, knock out the Photon Cannon, knock a hole in the wall, right? And then the Zerglings can keep coming in here. And then as the army responds, the Mutas can go back into here. And it's just like this giant box of a whole lot of dead probes and a very cost-efficient trade because their army has to respond to the Zerglings. Because while Mutas are painful, Zerglings unanswered actually do way more damage per second. So they've got to respond to the Zerglings. And while they're busy dealing with those, and once you've opened a hole in the front door for them, that's when your Mutas can go do a lot more damage to even more probe lines. And the Zerglings are easily replaceable. You're not too worried about those guys. Very easy to replace, just minerals and larvae. The other thing you can do that's very important is while your Mutas harassing, is that you can go around and you can kill probes. Now, even if your opponent, you know, they're on top of things, their units are responding, they're going to put the Photon Overcharge on the Nexus, they've got units here. One thing to realize is that it's okay to sit there and take some damage, right? In this position, you could easily say, you know what? Let me actually erase some of this nonsense. You could say, there's only 5 Stalkers here, right? I should go around here and kill all these Stalkers because I've got a lot of Mutas that can easily take 5 Stalkers. And as long as out here, I'll probably be out of range of that Photon Cannon. But the thing to realize is that Stalkers, even if you can take them, right? They can warp in more, maybe you can keep killing them, maybe not. The idea, though, is for every stalker you kill, if instead you targeted probes, instead of killing 5 stalkers, you would kill about 20 probes. 20 to 25 probes in the same amount of time it takes to kill 5 stalkers. So yes, it's nice to kill 5 stalkers, but if you kill all the probes, that's game over. And the probes are so much less in life than the stalkers are. And they're much more higher priority targets. So if you feel their stalker army is weak and you can take it, that doesn't mean take the stalkers. That means ignore their fire. Because if it's weak, it means they'll take a while to kill your Mulus, so you can just sit there and let them pew-pew at you while you're massacring all their little robotic buddies, Mighty Minerals. So when you meet us harassing, try to focus that on the micro. Focus on the probes, exactly what Bly does here. Nails all these probes, just more and more probes going down here. And then, of course, as soon as you're done with that, you can swing into the main if you want, or with this Nexus here, I guess he just wants to clear out before he loses too many guys. And he's just going to swing around over here, swing across the map, and then go back into main. And this is a situation where once you go into main, you can kill more workers, focus those guys down. And, I mean, with Phoenixes, you got to go after those. If there weren't the Phoenixes, this is where you could do that double hit where you pull down and then over, and you hit the front with the Zergians at the same time as the Mulus. As it is, though, he just wants to take out that pylon so no more Phoenix can bother him. In this situation, I mean, he's up, he's up by some workers. He's got a 3rd base on the way, a 4th base on the way. His opponent hasn't been able to stabilize their map, and the Mulus will eventually just pick man apart and proceed to win the game. So at this point, the game's in Bly's hands. But the important couple things there that made it in his hands were by far the most important. Mana's build wasn't streamlined. The Zealots came much later than Zealots could be effective. A mass Zealot attack like that is effective before your opponent has units out, besides Zerglings, or really late game when you don't mind losing 1,100 minerals of Zealots to kill a hatchery. Earlier in the game, you can't make those type of sacrifices because you don't have the economy to rebuild those units very, very fast. So that's really what put the game in Bly's hands, but then also the great intelligent use of the Mulus to focus on the probes and not worry about the stalkers because maybe they can warp in and defend and then the game goes on, but if you kill the probes, your advantage is massive. So that wraps up game number 3 between Mana and Bly. Take a short break and be right back with game number 4.